Hello, this is Carl Hime, and this is my spoken concert report for early music appreciation. My academic integrity statement provides you with the promise that the content of this report comes from my own ideas and feelings. I acknowledge that any information in this report may be submitted to a legal institution for verification and authenticity. So this presentation is on Giacomo Puccini's Suor Angelica and Gianni Schicchi. Giacomo Puccini was born 1859 and died 1924. Some of Giacomo Puccini's most famous operas are La Bohème and Madame Butterfly. The two operas that I am presenting, Suor Angelica and Gianni Schicchi, are the second and third one-act operas from Puccini's Trittico. The Trittico is said to be Puccini's last opera that he was able to see before he died. He had written other ones, but he never got to see them produced on stage. I'm going to start with Gianni Schicchi. I do this because I want to spend a little bit more time with Suor Angelica, a little bit more detail about the music and my feelings and thoughts with it. First, very brief, Gianni Schicchi is about a very wealthy man dying and his family being extremely greedy, them bringing in Gianni Schicchi to impersonate the dead man to be able to rewrite the will. But Gianni Schicchi gets very greedy himself, and in the end, he wills himself the three most valuable possessions that this man had. Yes, it was wonderful for his daughter, who is in love with a young man, one of the characters, and they get to live very happily. But Gianni Schicchi seals his own fate, and he is sent to hell with this action. So, some of the music I would like to talk about. The two lovers, the daughter of Gianni Schicchi and her lover. When they get together, when they sing, the orchestra brings in this music that they're in their own world. The orchestra swoons the audience. It creates this passion, this romance. It creates this love sound. And it does. It creates this place where these two people are in their own complete world. Nothing else matters to them. Nothing else would bother them. But it's great. It's their music. Another area with special music would be just around Gianni Schicchi when he is either rewriting the will or even thinking about rewriting the will. The music that kind of follows along with him is a very trickster flavored, I guess you could say. It's kind of, it reminds me of the Native American coyote. They win little tiny bits and pieces here, but in the end, they eventually lose it all. So, very similar, the Gianni Schicchi character and the Native American coyote just feels to me. So now working with Suor Angelica. Suor Angelica is an opera that is set in an Italian convent. Suor Angelica has been in this convent for 7 years, ever since she had an illegitimate son and was sent to this convent. She has not heard any word from her family or anything either about her son. So all of a sudden her aunt shows up, who is a princess. She wants Suor Angelica to sign over some land that she owns. So this aunt is extremely mean, uncaring, unconcerned about Suor Angelica. And all Angelica wants to know is how her son is doing, so she finally asks. And the aunt tells her that 2 years ago, her son died. And of course, this just breaks Angelica's heart. With this information, Sor Angelica decides to commit suicide. And as she's dying, she realizes that she has committed a sin. She begins praying to the Virgin Saint. The Virgin Saint hears her prayers and arrives to Sor Angelica with Sor Angelica's son, and they all go to heaven. So, kind of moving into the music of this opera. The first part of the opera, up until where the ant shows up, is not the most exciting. It's very plain, it's very calm. There are a few little bits when the nuns are flittering around that kind of, you get that butterfly or that bee music, kind of a sound. There is some somber music with them, there is some cheerful music with them. So there's some variation in the first part of Sor Angelica. The second half of Sor Angelica is very somber the entire time, I believe. Starting right when the ant shows up. Right as she's getting on stage, you hear this ominous, heavy bass string sound. So you already know that this is not a pleasant person. And to me, this whole section feels like a storm that is brewing. A storm brewing over the ocean even, or water at least. For me, as she starts walking in, I can see the clouds darkening and forming and gathering together. I can feel the pressure that's building. The color of the whole scheme just becomes darker. So then as she and Sor Angelica are interacting, the pressure builds, the storm builds, it begins to move the water. So there's the waves that are crashing onto the beach. But at that same time, they do go back out into the ocean, body of water. So there's the heaviness, but every once in a while, there's this calmness to it. But of course, once Sor Angelica approaches her aunt about her son, you really feel the pressure building. The colors just become really dark, and with those flashes of lightning through there. And the aunt is laying in on Sor Angelica about how she's shamed the family, and she's brought so much stress onto the family. And then of course when she tells Sor Angelica about her son, it just devastates Sor Angelica, and that's the big part of the storm where it just thrashes Sor Angelica, throws her onto the floor. And then as the aunt leaves, there's a lightness that comes over. So it's the dispersing of the clouds, the sun beginning to come through the clouds a little bit. It's still very somber, but it's lightening up a little bit. You see her moving and beginning to sing again. So the next part it's the aria Sanza Mama. This is one of the most famous arias in opera. It talks about, it's Sor Angelica talking to her baby son, her baby boy. What I find interesting with this is the first half of this aria, with Sor Angelica singing in her one lonely voice, the orchestra adds to this. There's one instrument playing. There's one tune that it's playing. It's one sound. It's singular. It's lonely. Something happens in the midway of this aria that she begins to sing to her son about they will see each other. They will be together. He's looking over her. And at this point, multiple instruments come in and play. Multiple tunes, multiple sounds begin. And there's just this brightness of it that begins to blossom. And again, I must mention, it's still dark, but it's lighter and it's coming through even more. And the one bit that really kind of brings hope into this aria, at the very end, is at the end, there is a strumming of a harp. To me, the sound of a harp relates to fantasy, but it also brings in this joy and happiness, kind of a rainbowy feeling, I guess you could say. So as they're moving on, it brings this, continues into the suicide and the sun coming in, down with the Virgin Saint. And I have to say, after watching so many videos on YouTube, watching the live production really touched me. I really felt at the end that pain and that sorrow, but that hope and that joy at the very end, when Sor Angelica goes up to heaven with the Virgin Saint and her son. So thank you. This is my concert report for early music appreciation.